So I'm my menagerie here, as you put it last week. Um, yeah, it's dinner time. So no, but if you put the trial on TV, you're going to miss a lot of context. It totally depends what you put in and what you cut, and you could totally skew the opinion of the viewer depending on which evidence you choose to put in the edit and which you can't. Like, at least with a jury and in a normal court circumstance, everyone has to sit there and everyone has to hear all of the evidence. But if you're cutting up a TV program, then there's a big danger there that, like, unless you're televising all of it, then there's a huge danger there. I don't know. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, what about you, Natalie? What do you think? And just
I
very generous.
hadn't really heard about the big debate in the Parliament. I must excuse myself for ignorance of that, but I wasn't interested.
It was modestly sized, yeah.
With a mindful eye that you had mentioned, this may have been one of the topics you want to talk about. I was interested to know a dialogue ongoing on Twitter today between James Dolman, who obviously reported the Tommy Sheridan trial, and Amr Anwar, and it became quite heated. And Amr Anwar was being accused of siding with the defence counsels, and all of them being fundamentally opposed from what James Dolman could say. And I think my very brief take on it is whether or not having a TV trial supports the right of individuals. What about like witnesses? If you suggest featuring witness statements as giving evidence as part of coverage, I think that puts an awful lot of pressure on witnesses, knowing that the evidence that they'll give could potentially be out there on the television as opposed to reported. It puts a face to people. What about juries? Do they have the right to a degree of anonymity? So I think there's quite a lot of that. What kind of trials would you cover? You know, if people are accused of crimes and not named.
I think that's really. I mean, I wrote something a wee while ago about that, about representativeness, about this idea that televising things, and I'm undecided about the fundamental principle, and I think you're right, Natalie, that there are really big concerns about the rights of witnesses, about the rights of people in the jury, and about the perils of this. But if you look at, you know, how many trials are undertaken by juries in this country, it's tiny. It's less than 5% of all trials. You know, so we're not really talking about really representing Scottish criminal justice, because in order to do that you'd have to go down to the Glasgow Justice of the Peace Court, go down to the sheriff courts and see the kind of daily grind of assaults and breaches of the peace and so on and so on. That's the reality of Scottish criminal justice in quantitative terms anyway. Mm-hmm. Whereas and actually you're mentioning of James Dolman there, who I think very much supports the extension of access of the press and to report these things. You can be pretty sure that if in the Sheridan trial that would have been a huge kind of big bonanza case, which the press would have loved to have covered in immense detail. Yeah, I think it's and Twitter. There was also another thing that the communications chief of the Scottish judiciary was at a debate, which I think James Dolman was at in Strathclyde Uni, and she was saying that the kind of proposals which are being adopted in England about people using Twitter in courts to sort of tweet what's going on would not be adopted in Scotland, she was saying, which I thought was interesting because it sort of suggests a rather different sort of more conservative attitude, you might well think, towards social media and a wider press, you know, being involved in reporting what's going on in Scottish courts.
There's an employment issue as well. That guy who does the drawings is fucked.
I don't think he still exists anymore, you know. Sort of got the court reporter who does a very nice wig. Yeah, I never applied for the job actually. Maybe I can look it up. Go down to Job Centre Plus and see if there's any going.
Sorry, I just wanted to swear because if we had to put the child warning on the front because of iTunes and Spreaker, I at least want something better than the word bullshit in the episode. Sorry.
It's fun. It's understandable. You want to get your profanities worth.
Yeah, exactly. No, but
well, I'm not going to add. Oh, sorry. Listen, Michael. So I'll off of that.
No, he's the salty one. See, I'm the elegant one. He's the salty one.
Oh well. Did she watch the thick of it? I don't know. But Andrew, so we Natalie and I kind of gave opinions against it more than anything else. So generally, do you fall in favour of doing it because only 5% of the trials are by jury. Are you kind of in favour, think it would open up things in a better way?
I think I am undecided. I think we shouldn't dismiss it out of hand, though, in terms of, well, firstly, because the press already do the things you were describing rather well there about giving particular images. You know, if you followed the Sheridan trial and you followed the Sheridan trial blog that James wrote, you got a real sense about the incompleteness of the record of what happened in the press. Now, they said, well, what's the most important thing going on here? So it's not a question of whether we have selective reporting, agenda setting by the media. That already happens, and it would happen obviously in a different way, and there'd be different perils if you had it on YouTube, say, or you could chop it up. I think you're right about that. But equally, I tend to be more in favour of more access. You know, these are public institutions, as people point out. You can go and sit in them if you have the time, and the public justice are largely, substantially anyway, paid for by public money. So I kind of my inclinations are generally towards more access for people, an easier understanding of it. But when you look at America, for example, in terms of their coverage of criminal trials, firstly, it turns out that they're boring for the main part. They're not Perry Mason. They're not Boston Legal. There's no Denny Cranes in there setting off fireworks. So they're quite kind of tedious grinding processes, and therefore they're not really very good telly. So that's what one point about their difficulty.
I think just to go back to what you said there, Michael, I'm actually undecided about the issue of cameras in courts as well. If I give the impression that I was against it, it wasn't my intention. I was just merely exploring some thoughts I'd had on it. I'm all for opening up institutions of our democracy and etc. to public scrutiny, and also for understanding as well. I think a lot of what goes on in the court system is a bit of a bafflement to people, and I think a better understanding of that may be very beneficial. But you know, I do have concerns. I've not thought about it too much, but I'm kind of undecided. I'm like Andrew. It depends what the specific proposals are that they want to have. You know, I'll be interested to hear the arguments and what it is that they really want to achieve by opening them up, because there'll have to be very strict safeguards put on it in terms of the reporting of what goes on in a trial, because obviously, you know, like James Dolman was a prime example of ensuring that what you were putting into the public domain was very restricted in order not to prejudice the trial, etc. So, you know, it'd be interesting to see how they navigate those particular pressures.
I just one wee final thought on that. I do worry that this focus on criminal trials obscures civil justice, which in this country, you know, we're dealing with collapsing legal aid budgets. That there are all of these cases that individuals are trying to take to get justice in their own lives. And to be honest, if you look at like the SNP manifesto in the last Holyrood election, if you look at the vision for justice recently outlined by the Justice Minister, civil justice is way down that list. We think about police, we think about crimes, and actually it would be nice to have a wee bit more focus in Scotland, I think, on those kind of civil cases and civil matters, which really just don't get talked about very much. Anyway, on that note, I think we should probably bring that to a wee close.
Yeah, Natalie, have we scared you, or you want to come back on at some point?
If you want me, you can have me.
Oh. Okay, but as usual, there's a tradition here. The guest chooses the tune. Except Andrew.
Ooh. So, what about Yola Tango's My Little Corner of the World?
Okay.
Never heard of that.
Neither have I, so you're going to need to email me that. I said.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Natalie McGarry, SNP activist, Women for Independence co-founder, I think. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and I'm sure we'll see you again. And thank you everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week with episode 3 of For All That with another guest from the world of Scottish commentary. If you have any guests you'd like to hear from, then do let us know, and we'll do our very best to try and persuade them to join us here and have a wee chat about what's been going on in the week and what's the kind of latest developments in terms of Scottish politics and Scottish independence. Thank you very much. See you later.
See you later.
Bye.